Yeah.
All right, thank you, ladies, all of you. Thanks for the roomful. Today we're here to talk about Telpas. I apologize profusely for the last minute notice, but several things are just kind of, anyway, you don't need to hear the excuse. But Telpas writing samples were supposed to begin on February 16th, and so we're a little bit behind, so we've got to kind of kick it into overdrive. All right, so the purpose of today is to talk about just the writing part. We're not even going to get into any other part. We're just going to move real quick on the writing part because I feel like, you know, we're at such an, I'm sorry, over here?
Stand over
We're at such a level of emergency that we've got to get moving. So these were prepared directly by TEA. I'm not going to read them to you. You do have a handout for yourself. I just want to go over some of the things that stick out every year. So what are we talking about? Nobody in here is new to this, I don't think. Maybe one. Telpas writing is made up of the samples that your children turn into you and that you prepare for your English teacher, which will be the gathering spot for your documents, except for on the Miller team, which Miss Lane will be the person that gathers your samples. Okay, so what's the point of it? Well, we're collecting the samples from a variety of content areas, and we're trying to base ourselves on their writing proficiency. So it is very important that all core teachers provide a sample, and also I will be talking to the elective teachers so that they can help you out to get some writing, because what I've discovered in my PDOS is that they're writing a whole lot for their elective teachers. It might surprise you how much they're writing for their elective teachers, so we might get a really good sample in those classes as well. All right, so what's the purpose? Well, we've got to figure out what their overall language writing proficiency is. And for some of you, you might kind of have that in your mind already, but for others, myself and Ms. Henderson included, that prepared the collection before it gets rated, we don't know these kids. So we need a wide array of their writing. All right. They should be authentic. It should be based on your content area TEAC. So math teachers, please don't have them write a narrative about what they did over the weekend. That does nothing. Okay? And we will go into a little bit in a second what each content area can provide. Like that definitely needs to provide, and then if you choose to do other samples as well, that'd be great. The starting date for this, like I said at the beginning, is February 16th. Anything after that date until about April 1st, I think, is the date that I'm going to cut it off. February 16th through April 1st is going to be our cutoff date for our writing samples. We can continue to gather them until the deadline for completing the collections, and you will submit it, like I said, to Miss Meeson, to Miss Leek, to Miss Lane, and to Miss LaRue. The 5 samples will come from at least one narrative about a past event. We'll go over this a little bit more in detail. I printed out directly from the Rater manual for you all of what these titles mean. So one narrative about a past event, and then at least 2 writing samples from math, science, or social studies. Come on in. The eligible types of writing are descriptive writing on a familiar topic, writing about a familiar process. This is where science and math can come in quite easily. Narrative writing about a past event, personal narratives and reflective pieces, expository and other extended writing from language arts classes, expository or procedural writing from science, math, and social studies. So there it kind of breaks it down a little bit better for what we can include from each subject. What should we not include? Papers that contain copied language, meaning they've researched it, they've looked online, they've worked with a neighbor, where they rely heavily on a dictionary or a thesaurus, where you have corrected it, where you've made comments on it, worksheets, question and answer assignments. It has to be, directly that writing, and that's all we need to see. Papers that have been polished, meaning that you have edited or that have been peer edited. Papers written primarily in Spanish or any other native language. In our school, of course, it's just Spanish that we have. And then papers that are brief, incomplete, or rushed. You want to make sure to get a good sample of your students' writing, and you know what that looks like in your class because you've had them all year. Okay. So we want to strive to collect, of course, more than 5 writing samples each year. Beth and I get together at the end, and we throw pieces of paper out. You know, we look over the collection and we make sure that we have at least 5, but we'd like to have way more, right? So we want to choose 5 that meet the criteria and do the best job of portraying their proficiency level. And then especially if we believe that that student is on the border between 2 different ones, we want to have enough to accurately represent their proficiency level. And as Ms. Henderson has pointed out, it is very, very important that they have their first and their last name and the date. First, last name, and the date. Nothing else. So what does that mean? When you are collecting these samples on these students, and I'll send you your students if you've forgotten who they are, you want to copy their work before you start editing it, before you put a grade on it. Before you touch that piece of paper, we have to make a copy of it, okay?
Now, do you want the copy turned into?
No, you keep the copy, give us the original.
Okay.
Good question. All right. We need to know where their comfort zone is in writing, meaning that they can do it right there on the spot. It's okay to send them home with writing if you have an overnight assignment, but it's better if we can get it in the classroom because that's what you can justify. Oh, that's their whole work. You know, they come back and they bring you this awesome piece. That's not their work usually. Okay, so I just caution you against that. And then also stretch them because you might think that, oh, this kid is, you know, for the great majority, our students are advanced or advanced high. That's where our population is. We have one student who's probably at a beginner level in 7th grade. We have another student in 8th grade that's maybe intermediate to advanced. But for the most part, our kids are advanced and advanced high. That's just our population this year. So we really want to be able to determine if that kid is advanced or advanced high. So you need to provide them those opportunities to demonstrate their proficiency level as much as possible. Let's see, the ELPS. Wait, what did I say? Yeah. The ELPS, which is the English Language Proficiency Standards. I'll give you a copy of that at our next training. I'm thinking I'm going to do a screencast of that so that I don't have to assemble you and you can do it on your own time. But that's what we're going to use to judge their writing level, their reading level, their listening, and their speaking level. And so when they write in English, we need to be able to tell the difference between those. We don't need the samples that are primarily in the native language, which, like I said, is only basically one 7th grader. We want to stretch her as far as we can go, right, Ms. Meeson?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then adapt the writing to their needs. You know, it needs to be what they're used to using. It needs to show what they've been practicing, the vocabulary that they're actually using, not something where, you know, this is the vocabulary that you got today, let's write about it. You know, let's use it in a sentence because that's unrealistic to us that don't know them. All right, summarizing. If they're capable of expressing themselves in English in detail, they should do so. Don't include the little brief responses, you know, unless that's all that they can do. Again, focusing on that little 7th grader that doesn't have a lot of language proficiency, we might see 1 or 2 sentences from her. Everybody else, we need to see extensive writing. And so if you can't get that from them, call me. I'll come find them and I'll have words, right? So otherwise we won't be able to determine their proficiency level. We need to balance our writing samples. Of course, it's very easy for the English language teacher to provide writing samples, but we need an overall. And so if you provide me a sample, this is what happens every single year. We try to, Beth and I try to get together to collect the samples and to get an overview of it. What we end up doing is we end up having to pull a kid from your class to get a new math paper, a new science paper, a new history paper. We get plenty from the English teachers, but the sample that you've provided based on looking at the samples that other teachers have provided for that certain student, don't meet the same expectations. And so we end up having to pull that kid and give them some time, give them a different prompt so that they can show us your content in a more proficient manner. So please save us that heartache. Name, date, first name, last name, date, and good overall observation. If you don't know if it's good enough for a Telpas writing sample, come see me, come see Beth, come see Meeson, come see Miss Carpenter. We'll all help you, promise. All right, and we have to follow certain procedures that are in the Rater manual, and I've made you a copy of that. So let's look at that real quick. He said I'm trying to go a mile an hour. On this part, this is where I normally get with each department and clarify which one of you is going to do what. So if you look at the middle of page 18, it says assembling grades 2 through 12 writing collections. It tells you exactly what the specifications are. I'm not going to read that to you. You can read it on your own. Please highlight it. I want to see it in your desk, in your rooms, so that we know you're doing what you're supposed to when it comes to turning in these writing samples. And I just want to go back and say I appreciate all of you for being here at the very, very last minute. All right, type 1, basic descriptive writing on a personal, familiar topic. Who do we normally give that to?
Language arts.
Language arts. So I'm going to put ELA about it. Type 1. Come on in, Miss Dillard. Type 2, writing about a familiar process. Who does that sound like? Science and math. Type 2. Type 3, narrative, writing about a past event. ELA. Type 4, personal narratives and reflective pieces.
ELA.
Or
Could
and
be anybody, couldn't it?
Yes.
could be history.
Could be history. Where am I? Oh, there.
It could
Tad Miller, you're in charge.
resolve.
Type 4, history.
It could talk about,
Okay.
you know, it could even talk about the science
Science, yeah.
when they dissected that frog. So.
Ah, that's true.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, type 5, expository and other extended writing on a topic from language arts. Let's do an ELA on that one, okay? Type 6, here's another hard one. Expository or procedural writing from science, mathematics, or social studies. So, this outlines exactly what we need for a good writing collection on each of our children. We have about, off the top of my head, about 15 students. About 7 or 8 in 7th grade and 7 or 8 in 8th grade. I think I said that twice, oh well. What else did I want to tell you guys about this process? It is short. If you walked in late, the starting date was February 16th. The ending date is going to be April 1st. So if you happen to have something sitting on your desk that you were going to get to grade and you just haven't, and it just happens to be on your desk, go ahead and make a copy of that before you slap a grade on it. Otherwise, we have about a month to get these kids writing. If they hate you, you can tell them to blame me. It's okay, we're getting them ready. It's good stuff. So, I know I flew through this, but you need to get to your classroom. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Under type 6, expository for science, math, social studies, it does say in bold, remember that 2 samples of this type of writing are required in each collection.
Which should be easy because we're going to get a science sample, a math sample, and a social studies sample from that section.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
How
So-
long do these need to be exactly?
It needs to be reflective of their abilities, you
Okay.
know, and so I mentioned earlier I don't want a sentence, but in math, if you're describing how to solve a problem, you might have 4 to 5 sentences. And as long as it is good and concise and clear, and that was what the topic was, it's fine.
Okay.
You know, you're not going to get as much from the math
That's what
teacher
I
as
was
you are
asking.
going to get from the
Okay.
English teacher, not a problem. One more thing I was going to tell you. Like I said, the other part of our Telpas training will come probably in a screencast, which means it will basically be a video that you watch on the computer about the other parts of Telpas. So this is the part that's dedicated solely to their writing. The other part is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And so from this moment on, you are assigned to have your students write. Don't do this and say, Betty, you're an ESL student, so you're gonna write this today. Jamie, you're not, so we're gonna do something over here. This is an assignment that you're doing for all of your children, okay? It just so happens when they turn them in, you're gonna put Betty's on this side of your desk, you're gonna put Jamie's on this side of your desk, so that when you get a break, you can go take this one to the copy machine and then add it over here to Jamie's side of the desk, okay? Real quick, one more thing I was gonna tell you. Your people to turn it into is Meeson, LaRue, and Lane, according to your team, okay? All right, now, Dillard.
What if we did a writing like last week and we just happened to put a grade on it? Can we white out the grade, make a copy of it, and then, okay,
That'll be fine.
You just need one from each subject?
As long as you
Each
did not
person
write
on
on
team,
it.
or two?
What?
like a correction?
You cannot make
We
corrections.
need
Okay,
as
that's
many
fine.
as possible.
As many as
I'm
possible.
I
asking, how
think
many
so
do I
too.
need doing history, because Jamie's doing some, Lane's doing some.
Right, the ones that we
Bastion's doing some.
designated are definitely history. Those are the ones that we need from you.
So I need to have them write every one of those problems.
No,
That's all I'm asking. How
was
many
there
writings do you
two
need
that
to
I
do?
asked you for?
Two?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there were two. There was 2 to 3 for each group, with it being 6.
And she said it, and it's written up there, and it's written everywhere else, but please make sure that every paper has a first and last name and a date,
Yeah,
because every year.
yeah. Every year we have to call a kid to write their date or write their last name on their paper. And that's kind of frustrating.
So we can't do that.
But, no, it needs
No.
to be in their handwriting.
Okay.
And we give you the original, we keep the copy, right?
You give yours to Ms.
Well,
Mason.
whoever, okay.
Yeah, and if you just do that ongoing, it's easier than having Ms. Mason have to go find you or us worrying at the last minute that you haven't provided any samples. Okay? All right, make sure you've signed in and make sure you take some donuts, because I got plenty. Peace offering for making you come in at the last minute on a Monday morning. Thank you.